will come his uncle, Claudius. And Claudius probably was spared all of the murder during the rule of Caligula because a lot of people, because physically he was not a strong person. He was pretty frail and sickly as a child. He was disfigured. He had hard of hearing. He had walked with a limp. So people often underestimated him. When he becomes the ruler of Rome, because there's no one left in line of Caligula because he killed so many people, he tries to rule as fairly as he can during his years of rule. He tries to expand Roman laws throughout the empire and establishes a number of legal precedents that are still in practice in many countries, including the United States today, including habeas corpus, or due process rights, the right that you're innocent until proven guilty, that rich or poor should be equal in the law, that there are certain rights that can be never taken away, that there is a trial that will be taking place if you're accused of breaking the law, that if you're accused of breaking the law, you can question witnesses, that the burden of proof is on the government if you want to try to put somebody in jail. These are all really significant precedents when we look at the government of the United States and our legal and justice system. A lot of what Claudius puts in place is in place still today. So he has a pretty positive impact on his rule. You figure maybe he got to live out to his old age, everyone celebrating him in his death, but no. His wife, Agrippa, is a really ambitious and conniving and cunning woman. And she wants her son, Claudius's adoptive son, to be the Roman emperor. And that guy's name is Nero. So Agrippa poisons Claudius. Now he's dead. And now his son, or adoptive son, Nero, is now in power. And Nero works really hard to make people forget how horrible Caligula was by being his own level of horror. He's known for murdering a lot of people, including Agrippa, his own mom. He tries to have her killed on a boat that he buys for that's rigged to collapse on her and sink. Eventually, he has his own guard stab his mother, his mom. Then two of his wives he has murdered, has killed. It's rough. He was really known for his persecution of Christians. Christianity is a religion that was spreading through this time period, and as a minority faith against the Roman polytheistic faith, the people who practiced Christianity were horribly, horribly tortured and often martyred for their faith. And Nero was a big part of really setting the precedent of torture for Christians, having them mauled by animals in the gladiatorial matches, using them as torches in his gardens at night, human torches, messed up dude. And he was really into the power of being emperor, but not really into the job of being emperor. He was more into like art and music, and really didn't want to let anybody like do anything to govern effectively. But he didn't really want to govern himself, and to that end, we see that ignoring his military responsibilities, parts of the empire start falling into revolt. Things are starting to fall apart. And he had a reputation as an artist and a musician and an athlete of not being the best, but he would put himself into competitions with people, and then if you won, he'd have you killed. So you had to basically lose on purpose. During his rule, a horrible fire for 9 days sweeps through the city of Rome, burns 70% of the city to the ground. And there was a lot of rumor that Nero, who was conveniently at his estate 30 miles outside of Rome at the time of the fire, had the fire started. Because after the fire, although he did a lot to try to feed the people who lost everything, he also had a massive temple built out of the ruins that he couldn't have had built unless Rome burnt down to the ground. Eventually, people are ready to turn on him and revolt against him. And like many other famous Romans, he takes his own life and falls on a sword. His last words were reported to be, "What an artist the world is losing." He really fancied himself as something special. And after Nero dies, chaos takes over Rome. There's a year of the 4 emperors where one person becomes an emperor, they get killed, another one becomes an emperor, they get killed. But that is the end of the Julio-Claudian dynasty, of the line of succession of Julius Caesar. Although all these emperors will be known as Caesar, and all emperors after them will be known as Caesar, that's the end of that dynasty. While all this is going on in Rome, Augustus's reign kicked off a 200-year period of peace throughout the rest of the Roman Empire. And we're going to see that this Roman peace, the Pax Romana, is going to have a long-lasting influence. Especially a lot of things we talked about with Claudius that he put in some place. The empire expands during this time period to its greatest extent. It becomes its most powerful. In its place, the bureaucracy put in place by Augustus keeps the empire running pretty smoothly. If you were an average Roman citizen living somewhere in the empire, things were going well. Your infrastructure was built up. The Roman aqueducts, baths, bridges, roads will be used for centuries, long after Romans go away. They build up infrastructure in these places that will have a lasting influence. The Roman law system, a lot of the ideas that we talked about with Claudius, this legal system will be put in place during Pax Romana throughout all these areas. And we see pretty much that legal system in place, not just throughout where the Romans ruled, but throughout much of the world. When these people conquer other areas, they bring that same Roman legal system here. One of the reasons why we have habeas corpus and all these legal ideas in place in the U.S. is because of this Pax Romana time. Wow. Latin, the root of all the Romance languages, is spread throughout Europe during this time period. And we can see from Latin, all these other languages come out of it. So the word amor, to love, we can see amar, amare, amar, amir, all these different languages have the same root. That's why if you learn Latin, it's very easy for you to learn Italian, Spanish, Portuguese, or French. Pretty cool.